Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim.
Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson, and I know my voice sounds really rough today, and I'm going to tell you it is. I have been down with this flu bug. It definitely hit me pretty hard, and there's a lot of it going around right now. And I'm not even over at my producer's where I normally record my podcast because I got on the phone with him and he said, no way, you're not coming over here sounding like that. So I don't blame him. And so we made arrangements and I got it worked out. So I'm recording at home. So bear with me, but I'm going to get through this episode with you guys. I didn't want you to miss one. So we are doing this episode today in a little bit of a different way. So I made a post in Facebook. The post says, I'm putting together a podcast of the most outlandish things that covert narcissists do. Share your examples here. And today, I just want to share these stories with you because some of them are hysterical, but some of them are not. And some of them are, they're all outlandish, but these are things you're going to relate to. Those of you who are out there living this nightmare, you're going to know you're not alone in this. So I started by sharing my own story because I did not sufficiently acknowledge his temper tantrum. My husband laid down on the kitchen floor between the stove and the refrigerator while I was cooking dinner. Okay, he's 40-something years old, and he is stretched out on the floor, throwing his little temper tantrum like a toddler, and I am stepping over him to cook dinner. That's my story of, one of the most outlandish things that he ever did. All right, so I'm just going to read some of these for today's episode, and I hope you really get some enjoyment out of this, some laughter. We have to find humor in all of this. All right, one person says, when I moved out of our bedroom and into the basement, he would go the long way to the kitchen and deliberately stomp his feet over my room at all hours of the night, like midnight, 2 a.m., 5 a.m. And I'm just picturing this adult man in the middle of the night stomping his feet through the house just to disturb his wife that he's upset with. All right, the next one is very similar. And it said that it was the wife, that she went upstairs and just moved furniture back and forth and spun it in circles to make as much noise as possible. Another story is that he threw himself on the ground in the street if the situation was tense or he felt guilty and couldn't deal with it. And so, of course, I would care for him and try to pick him up rather than be angry about what he did. And isn't that exactly what happens? They do this outlandish thing, like throwing himself on the ground in the street. Come on, are you kidding me? And then we can't just leave him there. We got to take care of him. And so we're the ones over there trying to help him and pick him up and tell him, come on, let's go. The ones being reasonable. Another story, he accused me of cheating to my own family because I cut someone out of a photo that I used for my LinkedIn profile. Now, the person that I cut out that he thought I was cheating with was, get ready for this, my sister. Okay, that's priceless. And he accused me of cheating to my own family because of cutting this picture, of her sister out of the photo. Well, she was the one who told me this story, the sister was. So I apologized to her and said, I'm really sorry that I cut you out of a photo when I was looking for a job. Another story, he is currently telling everyone, including our 13-year-old son, which, by the way, is really not okay, that I am dating a person that I've never even heard of. Apparently, he's from Maui, and we've been together for several months. So, another story, I discovered that he had put a smart tag in my car and had been tracking me without my permission for over a year, which, by the way, is the tracking thing is a real thing. That it's quite common that that's what's going on in these relationships. When I confronted him about it, he said, well, you never did anything wrong the entire time I was tracking you, so you shouldn't even be mad. How's that for a justification? Another story is he was covering his ears, screaming, la, 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 I can't hear you, so that I couldn't rebuttal his attacks. Another one says, how about running across the train tracks right before a train came to avoid a conversation that he was prioritizing video games over his family, especially while unemployed again. Now, running across the train tracks in front of a train. Okay, that's pretty extreme. And doing it to avoid a conversation about, being committed to your family and prioritizing your family. Yeah, that definitely is up there. How about smashing his own face with a cupboard to elicit a triggered panic attack response in me? Here's another story I really liked. Driving a herd of kids to the city an hour's drive away and encountering unexpected traffic and construction made me late picking him up from work. Well, this prompted non-stop belittling and attacking while trying to drive home, and him jumping out of the vehicle while it barely got stopped and running down the block in front of the kids, refusing to accept anything I said. The only thing he wanted to accept was that I deliberately made us late, forcing him to wait outside in the cold. I had to beg and do what he said and admit that I did it, here's my favorite 2 words, on purpose, to convince him to get back in so that we could go home. She goes on to say that she played peacemaker because the kids were watching. And I do understand that. We do give in. We do justify it. We do make excuses. And sometimes we do it because we're still trying to keep peace with them and fix the relationship. Sometimes we do it because we're trying to keep peace for the kids. Sometimes we do it because we're just totally confused and don't know what to do. So I understand that. She goes on to say, in hindsight, I should have left him there on his own. And yes, hindsight will definitely tell you we should have done that. We all should have done that. All right, another story told me that he had purchased a gun, but would not tell me where it was in the house or if it was locked away safely from our 4-year-old. He told me it was none of my business and to stop asking. What? Are you kidding me? You've got a 4-year-old in the house? No way. Now, a week later, he admitted that there was no gun. He just, quote, liked the attention. They are definitely attention-seeking individuals, but that is extreme. All right, the next story. He pretended to not understand or speak Spanish for our entire 8-year marriage. Now, when I first read that, I thought, okay, wait, what are you talking about? And she goes on and says also that he could play the victim whenever we were around my Spanish-speaking family or friends, and he slowly began to distance me from everyone. Well, days after we separated, during his smear campaign, he got on the phone with my family in Mexico and was speaking fluent Spanish. Everyone was shocked because they didn't think he spoke Spanish, at all. And what did he say? He claimed it was a miracle. Now, she says, I know it's not funny, but the miracle part makes it laughable. Okay, that is hysterical, that he claimed, oh, it's a miracle, and now I'm fluent in Spanish, to avoid people realizing that he was lying the whole time. Do they really think we're that stupid? All right, another story. One time I got too close to uncovering his drug abuse. So in order to distract me, he attempted to hang himself with an old tie that he hung over the bathroom door, but he didn't tie it to anything. It was just held in place by the door frame once the door was closed. Well, the tie obviously slipped out immediately, and so when it did, he threw himself to the floor. He then ripped apart the door frame because his plan didn't work, but he blamed me for not being loving or compassionate enough. Another story, he accused me of cheating constantly, especially when I would travel for work. One time I did not respond to his text quickly enough because, by the way, I was in the shower at my hotel. So he tracked my location and accused me of soliciting men at the bar next to my hotel. I was 6 months pregnant with our child. Yes, then clearly that's what you were doing instead of being in the shower at your hotel. And by the way, the text had only gone unanswered for 4 minutes. That's crazy. What is wrong with them that they have to have us at their beck and call, drop everything for them? I mean, what, jump out of the shower and go answer their text? Come on. Another story. We had plans to see each other one night. Nothing big. I was just going to his house for dinner and probably a movie on the couch. Earlier that day, an issue came up with his teenage daughter, so he canceled our plans to deal with it, which is totally understandable. I had no problem with that. Later that night, though, I could tell that something was off. Well, it turns out that he was mad at me for not offering to go over and support him. We literally fought for days because he told me not to come over that night, and I didn't ask him if he wanted me to come over. This is the moving the goalpost and the jumbled circular conversations that we get with them. She goes on to say there's so many other crazy examples, but that one is the easiest to explain. And I understand that because it is impossible to explain all the crazy things that we go through with them. All right, here's another one. Moved our baby's diapers from place to place, drawer to drawer, so that I could not find them when I needed them. But then she would cry when I asked her where they were or where anything else was and accused me of accusing her of moving things. What? Yes, they do move things. Not all of them do. I don't think my husband ever did that. But they do move stuff, and they move it and then blame you for, you can't remember where anything is or you're crazy. That's just part of the games that they play. All right, here's the next one. I was cleaning his car out for him. And by the way, he always complained about money issues, that there wasn't enough money to pay the bills for the family. When I cleaned out his car, I found a literal trunk full of items that he had purchased over maybe a year's time, basically stashed or hidden in his trunk, still with the tags on them and unused. When I got the car and the trunk cleaned out, the pile of stuff was almost as big as the car itself. Well, he got mad at me for basically discovering his stash, but yet I was still in trouble for being out of money to pay the bills for the family. After he moved out, this continues, I was cleaning out some of the house and found 15 pairs of unused, brand new golf shoes with the tags still on them. But yet he was mad at me for being out of money. This is the craziness that we go through with them. They expect us to just, wave the magic wand and fix everything. They're not team players that help us, and we do this as a team, taking care of our family. She does go on to say when our younger child had to go to the children's hospital to have an abscess drained, he quite literally waved at us from the golf course. On a less humorous note, he unilaterally decided that we were not having any more children because he could not watch me go through another miscarriage. They are very selfish, self-focused. Everything is always about them. All right, the next one. Oh, this one made me laugh. Okay. He told me I needed to go to a foreign country and have a surgery to have part of my spine removed so that I would be shorter than him. Okay, wait, what? He wanted you to go have surgery so that you would be shorter than him. And at first I thought, okay, maybe he was just joking around, but her story goes on. He refused to ride in the same car as me to church if I was wearing heels. He would come up to me and grab my shoulders, shoving down to make me hunch in an effort to compress, quote, compress my spine. Mind you, I was taller than him while we were both barefoot. Right before I left him, he sent one of his buddies at church after me to, go after and reprimand me. And these buddies in church were in leadership positions, to reprimand me for intentionally choosing to emasculate and embarrass my husband in such a public manner. Wait, because you were taller than him? She says, I may have flipped the ever-loving freak out on that guy. I cannot blame you one bit. That is insane. And by the way, you probably were taller than him before you even got married, or I don't know if you were married, but before you were together. I'm guessing you were taller than him the day you met him. So if it was that important to him, that's on him for not figuring that out. All right, let's see. I'm going to find a couple more stories to read here. He asked me for a divorce because a preacher offended him and I didn't take up for him, even though he didn't say a word to the preacher himself. Okay, wait, what? He asked me for a divorce because a preacher offended him, and I didn't take up for him, even though he didn't say a word to the preacher himself. I had a similar situation where my husband got mad at me because we were at a volleyball game and he'd gotten mad at another player, and so he had stormed off. I had nothing to do with it. I was actually not even on that part of the court, and he had stormed off and left, and I didn't follow him. I didn't go, check on him. I didn't even know what was going on. He just left. I didn't know. Maybe he'd headed to the bathroom. I didn't know anything. And then later he was mad at me because I didn't follow him out and check on him and make sure that he was okay. All right. How about putting his fingers in his ears during an argument, walking off to avoid accountability, became running to his car and driving off to get away, talking in a little boy voice to gain sympathy, calling my talking voice with tone, yelling. Yeah, that's another typical one. Let's see. How about my husband had scheduled a colonoscopy, but did not want to ask me to drive him because he might have to do the same for me one day. So he thought he could be clever and tell them that I was picking him up outside when in fact I was not. When they said I needed to come in to pick him up, he had to admit that he had no ride. So I love how this ended. He ended up having his colonoscopy without anesthesia. Boy, I bet that was a lovely experience. All right, one last one. This one is about a power mop. I bought a Swiffer Jet power mop for my college daughter to be able to mop her floor. She was going to be off campus housing and needed to be able to mop her floor. I included some microfiber pads that she could use and wash after the 3 that were the included disposable pads. My husband took that and the other cleaning supplies to her as I was unable to go that weekend. He decided to mop her floor for her. Okay. He unpacked the box, put the mop together, a few clicks in place, and insert the cleaner. But he did not put a pad on the bottom of the mop. He proceeded to squirt liquid everywhere and pushed it around with the mop. But with no pad, he was using a plastic piece to just move the cleaner around. He got so frustrated and gave up, angrily saying how this mop was so stupid and didn't even work. My daughter took one look at it and told him it's because you didn't put a pad on the bottom. And she went on to say, clearly mom does all the cleaning. Fuming mad, he went out and bought an old-fashioned mop and bucket, which was going to be more hassle for a college student. He said it was better than the stupid one I bought. Well, here's the rub. My husband was a national Lego champion in high school. He has multiple advanced degrees. He can fix a car engine, wire a house, put up drywall, and more. Has hobbies that include wood turning, welding, and beer making. He's in the medical field and can handle complicated procedures. He thinks like an engineer, and although my daughter is an engineering major, has questioned her abilities to build things. Yet, he can't see that a mop needs a pad on the bottom and throws a fit when his mistake is pointed out. These stories are the typical things that we go through, and they are outlandish. I really hope that you can find the humor in some of these stories. Sometimes it's easier to hear the humor when you're listening to other people's stories. But take a look at your own. What are the humorous things that are happening that just are not normal? This is not how normal adults function. This is not how normal marriages work. I want you to find the humor in what you're dealing with. Now, thank you so much for putting up with my voice today. I'm so sorry that it's as rough as it is. Here's to making sure that, it's better next week and I'm back on track. I wish you all so much peace on your journey of healing.
You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast. If you are struggling with covert narcissism in your life, I help people to heal from covert narcissistic abuse. If you are struggling with the isolation, the self-doubt, and the obsessive thinking, then this is the program for you. I offer both group and individual options. This is live, personalized coaching that is specific to covert narcissism. Reach out to me anytime You can find me at my website, covertnarcissism.com. I'm not a therapist and you are not a victim. I am a coach and you are a survivor. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson and the Covert Narcissism podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. It does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.